Welcome back to the 108 Peace Institute's podcast, where we nurture the ideas of democracy, freedom, climate action, and leadership. In today's special episode, we have a very special guest who has been very much vocal on Tibet, and he has been associated with Tibet for a long time. And he is none other than General Bakshi, General Major Bakshi ji.
다시들레 예실라 개구속 상보요베
Anga devu yi ani gela de우로와. gela shokja dubra shokja. Shokja 세사로와.
대체 약보제네 쉐키비도 육육 쉐키도
뉴뉴 빼하고 gela 빼하고 쓴 것도 가면 벽에 빼하고 쓴 것도. So sir, thank you so much for inviting us in your beautiful home in Gurugram, and we are very much touched. So today we will just try to speak about your association with Tibetan community, and as a defense expert and who also served in Indian Army for a long time, we'll also talk a little bit about the current relationship between India and China. Then we'll also try to highlight the importance of Tibet in resolving Sino-India conflict. And more importantly, this year His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama turned 90, and he has promised that he would live up to 130 years. So we'll also talk about His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama's contribution to India and India to the world and India in particular. So sir, I'll just begin by asking you about your association with Tibetan community. As you spoke a little bit Tibetan, and you said you haven't practiced it for a long time, that's why, but you are speaking very well. So how did it start?
Look, when I was a child, my father was actually started off as the chief education officer of the Maharaja of Kashmir, right, before it had merged with India. And so we were staying in Udhampur, and we were staying in a third-story house, and from that I could see people walking on the road. I used to see a lot of Ladakhis, and they fascinated me. I don't know why. Somehow I used to see those pictures of the monasteries and the Lama dances and all that, and I used to feel, I don't know, I have a connection, you see. And then I started reading a lot on Tibet. I started reading, started with the spiritual fiction of Lobsang Rampa. You remember that gentleman? It was spiritual fiction, but it was fascinating because it spoke so much about Tibet. And then, my elder brother, he was in the army too. He was a captain. In the 1965 war, he was martyred. And quite obviously, I was very upset, very angry, and then I joined the NDA. I gave my exam. You can imagine how, upset my people were. They had just lost one son, and the second son was going towards the army. But I said, I have to go there. I want to go to the Himalayas, to the mountains, and the army will take me there. I don't have to become a monk because the army will take me and pay me to be in the mountains where I thought I would do my meditation. So when I reached the NDA, we have a system of learning a foreign language. You can either learn Russian, Chinese, or Myanmar's language, Burmese, or Tibetan. So quite obviously, I opted for Tibetan. So my teacher of Tibetan was a Yingmapa Lama, Lama Thinle Dorji. Lama Thinle Dorji, tall Khampa, from Ghum in Darjeeling monastery. And so I went and met him, and I said, I want to learn Tibetan meditation. He was delighted. And then I started going to there. He started calling me to his house. And Anila was there, and he had a son, Wangchuk. And it was really so nice to be with that Tibetan family. I developed a love for momos. Gai Sampala, momo, jikten ki shimsoe khalagre.
I was about to ask your favorite dish. Since you mentioned it, I'm not going to ask about it.
Something very strange happened there. The first time when I went to him, to his house,
yes.
And I don't know, it used to happen anytime I saw anything Tibetan or felt anything Tibetan, I felt a strong scent on my nostrils.
Yes.
So I looked around, if somebody had burnt incense, there was no incense. So, but every time I went to him, I used to get that incense, that inhale that perfume of this thing. So I was very surprised. I asked him, sir, have you lit an incense? He says, no, right now there is nothing. So I kept going to him and I started the, on Chenrezi. He gave me a picture of the Chenrezi. I had to meditate on it and Om Mani Padma Hum on the heart lotus, 4 points and all that. I used to, long time I kept doing that. So then he told me that you will get a dream. And when you tell me that dream, then I'll tell you the next symbol in your meditation. Yes. Unfortunately, in the NDA, you get such a lot of ragada that you fall asleep and then no dreams, nothing. You're so tired. So I couldn't make much progress that way, but I kept trying. And then, you see, then of course I went to the Indian Military Academy and then I joined my unit. Yes. So I was still very intrigued that, I used from IMA, I used to go to Mussoorie. And there is that Tibetan, sector of Mussoorie where they have a monastery and they have a restaurant where they serve delicious momo, gyathuk, tukpa, And I don't know, I love Tibetan food, So one fine day when I joined my unit, I used to volunteer for long range patrols. So that, in the hope that I would meet some Tulku Lama, in some remote cave somewhere, and my Lama had told me that I'm destined to meet somebody like that, So, one fine day, I had taken a patrol to Tolong Gompa. Tolong Gompa is where the skull of the third Chogyal is kept, you see, and encased in gold. It's a very significant tantric site of worship for the, the Sikkimese. Sikkimese also speak very good Tibetan and all that. So, it was 16,000 feet up the Kishongla Pass, we climbed, very tiring, then we came down and there was that Tolong Gompa monastery, so next to it was the shed where they used to keep the yaks and all that, it was khali then, so we slept on the grass, In the morning when I got up, I got that scent. This time it was for real, So I went to that man, the monk there, who was there, I said, what is this scent? He says, oh, this is the stunted rhododendron. And they burn that leaves as perfume. And it has acrid, pungent, kind of a smell, but very nice smell, very faint perfume. He says, this is it. I said, how was I getting it in Pune? Pune is, almost sea level, and I was getting it in Mussoorie, I was getting it everywhere. He says, you must be remembering from some previous incarnation. You must have been a Tibetan.
And so, by the way, I also did my schooling from Mussoorie.
Oh.
Yeah, I spent almost like 13 years in Mussoorie. And so, how many years it took you to learn Tibetan?
We have a 3 years stint in the National Defence Academy. First 1 year you have to study compulsory Hindi. Then for the last 2 years you study Tibetan. So for 2 years we had studied Tibetan, And then when I went to Sikkim, I was posted to Sikkim. So when I used to go on patrol, I used to meet the Lepchas who also speak Tibetan. I used to practice Tibetan. They were so happy. Then I had gone to Ladakh. I used to try my broken Tibetan, and they were delighted. I have a lot of love for the people of the hills. They are so simple. They are so good-hearted. You see, when they smile, it's sunshine, because they smile from the heart. They're very nice people, Tibetans, Lepchas, Ladakhis, Buddhist. I have a fascination. I think it's a karmic association.
You absolutely said it correctly, sir. Like a karmic bond between you and Tibetan community and Tibetan Buddhism in general. So, sir, since you can speak Tibetan language, I'm sure you're quite different from the rest of Indians who don't speak Tibetan. So you can understand how we think, and According to you, what is the best quality about Tibetan, particularly who practices Buddhism? So when you meet, what is your first expectation from them, and how they actually respond to that expectation?
Look, the first thing is they are so devout, so passionately devoted to their religion, to their Dalai Lama, Rinpoche. You see, that is something which is amazing. And the most amazing part is how many years, almost about 60, 70 years since they left their homeland. But the memory, the tenacity with which they have held on to the memory of their homeland, and everywhere they go, whether in Dharamshala or in Mussoorie or in Mysore, they create a little Tibet. And they have kept their culture alive. I think it is a remarkable feat for a culture that was destroyed. Destroyed, and I mean destroyed. I mean the way when even before the Chinese Cultural Revolution, 1953, 54, they started the crackdown first against in the Kham, in the east, and then they started building the roads that brought so many Chinese troops there that the fragile economy of Tibet, which produces such limited amount of food, that economy was crashing down when they started then collecting the weapons and all that. And by 56, a full-scale revolt had started in Tibet. And Raga, Andruchang, Pangdat Chang brothers, they had started that revolt in Tibet. And the Chinese in retaliation were ruthless. They bombed the monasteries, they bombed Potala, they, anywhere they found resistance, they brought in tanks. They had no hesitation in using any type of weapon. And unfortunately, by 1956, they had more or less crushed that revolt. And then in the time of the Cultural Revolution, once again they started that crackdown on Tibet, Tibetan religion, Tibetan monasteries, the lamas, forcing them to become lay people. I mean, they raped the nuns, and it was terrible. Tibet has passed through terrible times. But what is most heartening is the way the people of Tibet have kept alive the memory of their homeland in their breasts, wherever they go, whether in the United States, whether in Europe, they have a little Tibet. And whenever you see a Tibetan, you see a little Tibet.
Yes, sir. We have less than 2 lakh Tibetans in diaspora, but still Tibet is well known in the international fora and platforms. So it is all because of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, his teachings, and his advocate for love, compassion and peace around the world. Yeah. And so you rightly said that China destroyed almost everything in Tibet, right from 1956 to 1960s. But still they are claiming that they have the right to choose the next Dalai Lama, despite being an atheist state. The very founding member of China, the Communist Party of China, Chairman Mao Zedong, who notoriously said that religion is a poison.
Opium of the people.
Opium of the people. So, how do you think about that statement?
Look, it is an oxymoron. Here is a communist state, an atheist state, which does not believe in God, which does not believe in the Buddha, which does not believe in any religion, claiming that they have the right to choose the next incarnation of the do they believe in incarnation? I'm not sure of that. Yes. They don't, because if you are either an atheist or either you practice Buddhism, you don't. And then to claim that we will select the next Dalai Lama. We've seen what happened with the institution of the Panchen Lama. How they chose a puppet Panchen Lama and tried to this thing. It is another matter that the people reacted by selecting the Panchen Lama here by the traditional methods. And now there are two Panchen Lamas, the Chinese and this thing. As far as the Chinese are concerned, I don't think they have any right to interfere in a religious tradition. You know, there are absolutely laid down parameters for how, you know, in his book My Land and My People, His Holiness has described in detail, you know, the kind of indications that were received by the monks, by the high lamas, by the Tulku incarnate lamas of where he would be born next. His predecessor had left indications. Those indications were corroborated. Then they came incognito, the lamas, the group of lamas, to test the child, right? They showed him the rosary and from his past incarnation and a lot of his own artifacts and things and how he recognized them. And they didn't say that they were going to come to check. So it was a surprise to the family. It was a, you know, very humble family. And that is how he was selected, because he has to be able to remember the artifacts of his past, the incidents of his past, reincarnation, you know, and that is, there is a laid down procedure. You know, it is a very holy undertaking. It can't be trifled with, it can't be messed around with. It's highly, highly incorrect for any atheist government to try and select the next Dalai Lama, because then the whole objective is political, to take control of the Tibetan diaspora, the Tibetan people, and to, you know, have. They did it with the institution of the Panchen Lama and virtually destroyed that institution. So if the intention is to destroy the institution, well, they may go ahead with this kind of a thing, but I don't think it is right in any manner for a non-practicing Buddhist, for an atheist, to try and say that they will select the next Dalai Lama.
So, in His Holiness the Dalai Lama's latest book, Voice for the Voiceless, His Holiness has categorically said that he was born in a free world outside of China.
Absolutely.
So then he also said that he would leave a written instruction before he passes away. So these two are major hints about his future reincarnation. So now here is a very hypothetical question. What if the 15th Dalai Lama borns in India? So how would the government of India treat the 15th Dalai Lama? Because China
I think the government of India has always respected all religions. We have that Sarva Dharma Samabhava, you know, thing, and we do believe that, you know, Ekam Satya Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, that truth is one. So we in India, people are deeply religious. And by the way, the Buddha is supposed to be the 9th incarnation of Vishnu. So Hinduism and Buddhism are linked, very closely linked. The Buddha is the 9th incarnation of Vishnu. The Indian government would be very respectful of tradition. We don't interfere in traditions, and we accept what we would go by what the Tibetan people want. You know, because the Dalai Lama is an institution which is central to their religion. It is central to the religion. Dalai means the great ocean, and the Mongol Khans had given this title to the first Dalai Lama, right? And of course, the 5th is an institution by himself, one of the greatest Dalai Lamas, and the 14th. He has said clearly, I want to be reborn in the free world.
Yes, sir.
It is his intent, it is his will. You incarnate, the incarnation, the Tulku principle operates by the will of that individual soul. He wishes to be born in this thing. That rules out occupied Tibet or China whatsoever, right? So the Chinese are likely to, as for political reasons, for reasons of maintaining control, may look in occupied Tibet for, you know, the reincarnation, so-called reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. I don't think that would be correct. I don't think the people of Tibet will accept that incarnation, that reincarnation foisted, imposed by an atheist communist government. In India, the Indian government would be very happy whichever the Tibetan people, by their processes, by their traditional methods, select the next incarnation of the Dalai Lama, of His Holiness, and this time it will be far easier. Far easier because he will be leaving behind written instructions,
Yes, sir.
which can be followed to the letter, which should be followed to the letter. And amongst the diaspora, if he is reborn, and it would be a great honor if the reincarnation takes place in India. We would deem that the land is honored, our people are honored, our religious traditions are honored if His Holiness reincarnates in India.
So there are many experts who believe that China will also appoint their own Dalai Lama, the 15th Dalai Lama. So in such scenario, they will have two Dalai Lamas, one by China and one by the Contemporary Trust. So if China succeeds in appointing their own Dalai Lama, do you think they will have any geopolitical ramifications, particularly to India?
Look, India and Tibet, as long as we were neighbors, we had no problems. Unfortunately, when the Chinese came in Tibet, we've had a whole lot of problems. We hope they will get resolved. We are now currently, there is a thaw in relations between India and China for geopolitical reasons, because both of us are under pressure by the United States presently. So there is that tactical thaw, but the simple fact is the border dispute started when? Not before 1950. It started only after 1950, and what was the most peaceful border, like Nepal and India? People can go across there of the roti beti ka rishta hai.
Yes.
We've got close ties of marriage and kinship and religion and this thing. The holiest shrine of the Indian civilization is in Kailash Mansarovar, the holiest shrine. And till very recently, the Chinese had stopped Indian pilgrims from going there, and there was a lot of, people were very upset, very agitated. This is the holiest shrine of the entire Indian civilization, Indo-Tibetan civilization, all allied civilization, Bhutan and Sikkim and all of them, all those people, people of Ladakh, they look towards that as a spiritual beacon, the holiest beacon, holy grail is there. And fortunately, the Chinese have now permitted that we can start this thing again. We hope the thaw lasts, but the simple fact is that all problems started, unfortunately, when the Chinese came into Tibet. And then the initial, under Mao, the Chinese were brutal. Lin Biao and the great cultural revolution, they were brutal. That kind of a repression has not been seen. I think over 2 million Tibetans have been killed.
Yes.
In these, so therefore this story is very sad, very unhappy. And personally, as an individual, I would be the happiest if they can go back to their land and be free and, practice, keep their religion, their traditions alive. The happy river, the Kailing Chu, should be a happy river.
Yes.
And not a river full of tears and blood.
Yeah. So I normally tell young Indians that China has already snatched Mount Kailash from India
Indic civilization.
and from Tibet. Then I ask them a question: is the Dalai Lama institution in the line next in the line? So this is a question to young Indians. Sir, you also mentioned about the border between India and Tibet. And when you visited Dharamshala back in 2021, you spoke very strongly about the border. You said that India shares border with Tibet, not China. So do you think creating awareness about that border between India and Tibet will have impact among young Indians who are growing up?
You see, the best part is young Indians have become aware, of. Otherwise, you see, we are quite inward looking, the Indians. We don't look outside that much. And that was one of the reasons why initially we faltered in our geopolitics, because as when the British were there, General Francis Tucker and all of those, there were contingency plans to, move into Tibet when, in case the Chinese came and all that. But at that time, we were, wanting a pan-Asian unity, and Pandit Nehru wanted Panchashil and this thing and all that, and Tibet was given away without a shot being fired, without any resistance. We had our people in Farid Zong and Yatung, and we had our embassy kind of a thing in Lhasa itself, and military detachments, but nothing was done, nothing to help the Tibetans. They were left all alone. The UN did nothing. Nobody did anything at that particular stage. And Tibet is now part of China. And we are happy that the diaspora has kept the idea of Tibet alive. The idea, Victor Hugo said, no army can withstand the strength of an idea whose time has come. So it's an idea. You can't let an idea die. The idea of the Tibetan people as an entity who is so uniquely different from the rest. And like we say in India, vividata. We must celebrate the difference. Celebrate the difference. Celebrate the diversity. But in a communist dispensation, they want to impose absolute uniformity, like turn everybody into a Colgate toothpaste tube, all the same, no difference between you and me. That's not the way the Indic civilization has functioned, because we respect the liberty of the individual to follow his own path, his own path to God.
So, sir, right after China's occupation of Tibet, India had these border problems with China, and the government of India is spending lots of money on border infrastructure and border security. But still, China manages to intrude into Indian borders. That is one part where you covered most of the areas about India-China relations and the importance of Tibet. And one last question that I would like to touch upon is, as I spoke earlier, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama turned 90 years old this year. So, have you ever met His Holiness?
Oh yes, oh yes.
How many times you met him?
Two occasions I met, and I treasure the memory. I when I was editor of the Defense and Security Alert magazine, we had requested for an interview with His Holiness, and it was a 1 hour freewheeling interview, and we were sitting so close to him. My God, that is a memory which is sacred in my heart, because with my background of Tibetan interest in the Tibetan religion, Tibetan language, Tibetan culture, it was, I think, the most high point of my life, that I could sit so close to His Holiness and talk to him. And he was so kind. He liberally gave of his time. He freely answered all the questions, and but he is very astute. He's extremely astute, and he knew what to say and what not to say. In fact, 2 or 3 times he corrected me. No.
So, did you speak to His Holiness in Tibetan?
To start with, but then I was very worried. I was very I was very worried that if I don't use the correct terms, it would be dishonor to him. And since my knowledge had gone rusty because I hadn't spoken it for a long time, so therefore we spoke in English, of course. But I, of course, started with my Tashidile. But then, I was very worried, because in Tibetan is a language, the honorifics
Yes,
are very important, are very, very important. So inadvertently you may make a faux pas.
Yeah.
So, with that sacred institution, you can't, make a error.
Sure.
But, you raised that issue of the geopolitical tensions between India and China. I'd like to say a few things.
Yes, sir.
1962, we were caught by surprise,
Mhm.
you know, and we had one of the most humiliating debacles.
Mhm.
But millions of tons of water has flown down the Brahmaputra since then. When the Chinese tried again, they got it right back. We mirror imaged when they came in 2020 at the time of COVID. We were again taken by surprise because we never expected that during COVID there would be military activity down here. So, when they put in their troops, they started that exercise trying to nibble into disputed areas, or which are ambiguous, because they have one claim line and one line of actual control. We have our own understanding of the line of control. We've been saying put it on a map, mark it, discuss it. They have not done it so far and all that. But 50,000 troops they put, we brought in 80,000, tank for tank, gun for gun, man for man. And then the Chinese realized that, in the Chinese strategic thought, they have only one main strategic direction. Their strategic direction right now is towards Taiwan, towards South China Sea. And they realized they had made a mistake by opening up another front and getting into a two-front situation just because of instigation by Pakistan. So they have realized, they have realized, and therefore they have asked for a thaw with us. And because the Americans are, unfortunately, Donald Trump at this stage is getting erratic. So we don't know what the future is. So there is a tactical thaw on the border. We hope it lasts, but let's see.
Okay. So before we wind up, a quick birthday wishes to His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Of course, my most devout birthday wishes to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May he live to be 200 years in this incarnation itself. So we have no problems of the Chinese interfering with the selection process. But he is so full, he radiates joy, he radiates happiness, he radiates peace. Just to see that holy visage, we pray that we can keep seeing it for years and decades and decades and decades. We would pray to His Holiness not to leave us, not to leave us at all, and stay with us in this incarnation. In the Indian tradition, there are, Dirghajivis. Parshuram, my ancestor, is a Dirghajivi who was in the times of the Mahabharata, he was in the times of the Ramayana. So he lived for hundreds of years. So we hope and pray that His Holiness, with his power of meditation, will enhance his life and spare any machinations to interfere with the institution. Anybody who has no right to interfere with the institution should not come in the way, and His grace should be with us for decades and decades to come.
So thank you so much for giving us your wonderful time, in spite being so busy, and I really thank you from my bottom of heart. Thank you so much for inviting us to your home and this wonderful.
Tibet into my drawing room by coming here.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
And you see, just in conclusion, I ultimately found my guru, because my Gegenla had told me that I would get a guru. So I found one. He was an engineer, he was a Swami Pranvananda Saraswati. He used to live in a forest as per the classical tradition, and he taught me meditation. I used to meditate 6-7 hours at a stretch. And then I had a great experience of Ananda. And in the Ananda, What was the experience? I felt within me a tinkling river of joy, the river of happiness. And I thought the word came in my head, Kailing Chu, the river of happiness.
Yes.
May we all get that happiness.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.